I'm seeing a very significant pattern repeat over and over again recently when I do private consultations. And that pattern has to do with knowledge versus wisdom. It has to do with embodied spirituality versus spirituality that stays up in the ethers. And if I should give my take on why this is coming up so much right now, I would point to the patterns of Saturn and Neptune. First of all, from around the time I'm filming this video, Saturn will be moving into retrograde and staying there retrograde in Aries around 14 degrees until December this year. And at the same time, we still have Neptune also moving through its cycle of Aries. And Neptune is a vital player in this question about embodied spirituality, because before Neptune permanently moved into Aries this year at the end of January, with a test period into Aries last year, 2025, it has basically been in Pisces since 2011 and permanently 2012. And I find this very significant to understand and to know if you want to understand why embodied knowledge and wisdom is becoming more and more important in this moment. So I want you to think back to 2012 and think of how much spirituality, social media became something that everyone talked about. Suddenly everyone talks about meditation, channeling, esoteric experiences, manifestation, tips and tricks to dive into the spiritual matters and realms and all of this. And as much as I love to go deep, as much as I'm someone myself that really can go deep into the depth of birth chart, cosmos, understanding of life, and I've had a near-death experience on top of it that made me very aware of us being a soul in a physical human body. But I've never found it very interesting if it's not an embodied experience, if it's not channeled down to a grounded form. And I think that's why I can address this pattern so clearly right now happening in the collective. Because think of, since 2012 up until now, Neptune were dissolving the boundaries in Pisces for our understanding of what we are connected to, what the world is connected to, spirituality, moving into a broader connection to ourselves and as a collective, creating a language, particularly through social media and popular mainstream sayings, that it became normal. It was no longer something that, you know, a dude went to a Vipassana retreat and then came back and was woo woo woo. Or we are not talking about the 60s either, but a new level of understanding spirituality and dreams and visions and all of that. But then, because Pisces, Neptune Pisces dissolves the boundaries, there is a broader picture, a reset in humanity, asking us to understand that this knowledge is nothing without embodied wisdom. So when we had Neptune moving permanently into Aries this year, a lot of people would start feeling that what they were usually connected to, whether it was channeling, meditation, maybe even ayahuasca or whatever retreats that might come up, and had played a very crucial and beautiful part of the journey, a healing journey and working with oneself. Now those methods, those approaches are just not working for people anymore. Like, I see this in birth charts over and over again, and I want to name this because people are not necessarily aware of the language yet for this shift. They just have experiences where they either get really fed up with a spiritual saying, fed up with, oh, we are like souls, blah, blah, or they can't listen to what they usually listen to of content in regards to spiritual experiences. And that tells me a significant dance between Saturn and Neptune, which is when Saturn now also this year permanently moved in to Aries and will be staying here for a while, and now is in retrograde. Even more people would start feeling this tension between how are you living your day-to-day life versus the knowledge that you have obtained for the past many years, maybe even decades. And are those two in alignment? Or are you still setting up juice fasting, retreat settling, box breathing, all of these facilities that in many ways has become a very consumerized version of a lived embodiment of being a soul in a physical body. So, and now with Saturn, he comes in to hold us accountable for the wisdom that we have obtained through Neptune being in Pisces since 2012. And he will not leave us alone before we start embodying that experience, meaning you do not need to retreat yourself or channel like some intergalactical mystery voice to say, you know what, I know I'm a soul and I know that I can tap into wisdom way beyond my physical body. So therefore I just choose that this is my experience, that this is how I live life, but it doesn't make me separate or different from everyone else and their journey or their expression. Saturn wants us to have a lived experience where we have upgraded. We are just in this frequency now. There's no need for naming it. What is needed now is to live it. You know, to live life as a meditative experience, not to schedule out meditations on a specific time, looking at a specific candle with a specific mantra. If you do so, feel free to do so. If it helps you to create structure, nothing wrong in it. I'm just giving some examples of what Saturn is asking us to integrate now in our birth charts. Because this dance between the esoteric depth versus the embodiment is equivalent to our human experience. There are things physically we can't deny. We are having pain if we get a cut in our body. We are constantly changing. We are getting older, Saturn. We are changing our appearances. We are not a child anymore. We're not a teenager. You know, we are not even those cells anymore. The entire cells of our body changes every 7 years, you know, all of them. And Saturn holds us accountable for that human experience where we need to accept we are just like nature. Nature also goes through cycles. You know, there are no trees that, tries to hold on to the leaves when it's autumn and they need to sweat the leaves and be bare for a while before spring arrives and new cycles arrives. And we are the same as humans experiences, and I think that's important, and actually that fits so well, and I'll come back to how you can identify this pattern perhaps even in your own birth chart, but let me just get a book. This is Marcus Aurelius. This is classical literature. It's the book of meditations, and what the subject that I was addressing today fits perfectly with a note he did in book 5, and I will just read a few sentences for you about these thoughts. And he says, "But a man needs rest as well. I agree he does, yet nature assigns limits to rest, as well as to eating and drinking, and you nevertheless go beyond her limits, beyond what is sufficient. In your actions, only this is no longer so. There you keep inside what is in your power. The explanation is that you do not love your own self, else surely you would love both your nature and her purpose." And I read this book multiple times, but this was exactly the page that I was on today. And I cannot think of any better description of what's going on between Neptune and Saturn right now, because in this human experience, we tend to indulge too long in, because we have free choice, but we can indulge too long in what is not in nature's best interest anymore. And that is why we have Saturn coming in saying in Aries, you know what? We have been floating in Neptune, Pisces for quite a while, but this year is different. And now moving into retrograde, what I'm gonna do for you, I'm gonna create 5 months for you to really reflect on where there's friction in your life right now versus the knowledge you know to be true and that you have learned for a long time now versus how you live it in your day-to-day life experience. I could not think of anything more relevant. And just to give you a few tips on how you can work with this in your birth chart, but you can look at where is Pisces placed in your birth chart, which house, then you have the areas of life which has been under severe restructure from Neptune. Then at the same time, you can look at where do you have Aries placements in your chart. Are there any planets aspects activated by degree, perhaps even 14 degree right now, where Saturn will move into close to retrograde. Because those areas will show you where you have obtained a high level of knowledge into the more spiritual realms of life. And Aries will show you where your soul is going, where you need to integrate it, where you need to make it a lived experience. And depending on your birth chart, how those communicate, it will look very different to all of you. But some things to look for, because I've seen this repeatedly in clients for the past 2 months, is if you have any area of friction in your life where something you used to love is just not working for you, maybe you even get bothered or annoyed by it, but you're still clinging on to it as an explanation for whatever identity you feel that you are connected to, then I would start questioning that. I would start questioning the methods in your daily life that you go to whenever you feel you want to feel that you're wise, that you're making good choices for yourself. And I want you to question, are those still wise for you? Are those still good choices for you? Saturn will make that very apparent for you. And that's why I love Saturn. Like, many astrologers talk about this placement as if it's like he's a hard dude, but he's actually a very fair man, a holder of time, when you know how to work with this energy. So that is my thoughts that I felt like coming on with here. I will do some insights for each sign during the week about Neptune and Saturn as well. So stay tuned, and please like and subscribe to this channel and follow along the journey. And you can always check the description box below to see what current offers I might have to work with you personally. And I wish you a beautiful day. Bisous.